Hi, Achim here, InnerSpace Explorers. Today we're going to talk about the valves from these vintage tanks. And I did this video already a couple of days ago, and only to figure out that after I reassembled everything and pressurized these tanks, that the video had no sound. So yeah, I'll give you this little introduction now and the obvious disclaimer, and then we'll watch this video and I'll do a little voiceover and describe a couple of things that I'm doing there. But in general, yeah, it's pretty self-explaining what I'm doing there. So obviously, if you have issues with your valves, bring them for service to your local dive center, your local dive store, and don't do what I do because it might be completely wrong. And obviously, you can get hurt or killed if you don't know what you're doing. So what I show there is simply what I do with my stuff, but it is not necessarily the correct way to do things. If you like my content, please hit the like button and subscribe to my channel. And if you subscribe, click that little notification bell so you get information when I upload new content, which normally is once a week. So let's have a look at these valves.
Okay, so let's have a look and take it apart. So the first thing we want to remove is this little tube on the bottom, which is from plastic on this one. Normally they are chromed brass, and you want to make sure that you don't break these, especially when you grab them with pliers or something like that. So this one here came out super easy. Um, but yeah, you want to make sure that you don't hurt these. And they're important because if there's water or anything else in the tank and you're in a head down position, they prevent that water or whatever it is to flow into the valve and then in the regulator. So basically, that sucks the air out of the middle of the tank, so to speak. Yeah, that was what I was demonstrating there. Um, and yeah, as I said before, this one came out super easy. Could throw it out I threw it out with my fingers. Thread was okay, so we put this aside. um, so we can reinstall it after cleaning. So the next thing that needs to come out is this plug. As you can see, this valve has two outlets, so you could actually put two first stages on there, and they're both fed by this one knob, or closed, so to speak, opened and closed. And so one of them was permanently closed with this blind plug or blind screw, and I'm removing this now with a wrench. And if that doesn't work, so that was a bit of a pain there, but I could hold it with my hands. But if you need more lever, don't put the valve in a vice grip or anything because you may damage the threads if you don't put anything protective beneath. So just screw it back in the tank, and you can hold the tank. Especially like if you have it between your legs when you're sitting on a chair or something like that. That usually works pretty well. So this one came out relatively easy. That O-ring was stone hard and more flat than round. So it was a good thing that this finally came out. Now we need to remove the knob. So we take a normal flat screwdriver, take out this first screw on the outside that basically has a spring underneath it that yeah, keeps the knob in place. And so yeah, we put that apart as well. So in a lot, especially in saltwater diving, these screws and springs are sometimes in really bad shape, really corroded. So in that case, it was all fine. So now we have this little nylon washer that you have in between the valve and the knob, which makes the knob just easier to turn. It's like a sliding component, if you want. And we obviously take that apart as well. And now we can open the valve seat itself, so the inner part of the valve. Yeah, wrong wrench. Same here. If you can open it, if you can still hold it with your hand. So this one probably, yeah, this needs a little bit of a tap. Uh, But yeah, now it's open. And what you see here is that inner moving part. So yeah, that's the outer part with the seal. And this is the inner part this is the inner part that acts a little bit like a screwdriver and turns out the inner valve seat. There's this square out there where the knob actually goes on. And I'll show you in a second. So yeah, there you see the slot where this screwdriver-like thing goes in. So I take a screwdriver now and turn this out. So what I'm doing there with the screwdriver is basically what you do when you turn the knob on your valve. And what comes out here is the sealing component, so to speak, which here also looks super clean. Um, so especially saltwater diving, sometimes these look really terrible. So the white part there in the front is the sealing, there's the seat. Yeah, and there you actually see this is how the parts go together and what happens when you turn your knob. You basically screw this brass part in and out, and there you can see the middle part where this sealing surface goes on and then closes or opens the valve. And here it's just showing that the valve comes from the tank underneath and then distributes to both of these openings, and you control both of them with this one valve. So the last thing we want to do is we want to take off this reserve. And we'll screw this out. And what we have left here is now the empty valve body. So there's this one O-ring still that you um, need to remove, obviously, because we don't want this in the cleaning bath. Um, so yeah, take this O-ring out, put it aside so we can replace. So yeah, I just put everything together, so parts that belong together. And so yeah, this then goes into the ultrasonic cleaner. I'll talk about that in a second. So I have one, and also have a big one in the workshop that can actually hold 100 liters of liquid. And if you don't have one, it's not a problem. There's plenty of other things that you can do. So I think I talked about that before, but you can, for example, use a dishwasher. Works perfectly all right. So you take a little net, put all the parts in. Well, I'll show you that when I actually do the service on these regulators. And so I'll show you the alternative to the ultrasonic cleaner. But so these parts actually go in the ultrasonic cleaner. And so yeah, last thing we need to do now is take the reserve apart and show you how this works. But before I actually started to take all the parts together that belong together, so it's easier to have everything like in one pile and don't mix things up. So parts that go in the cleaner, parts that do not go in the cleaner. So yeah, like these little nylon washers do not go in the cleaner. Yeah, there was um, this blind plug, and yeah, it's good this video is without tone because that gave a pretty bad hole in the finger. And yeah, there's this O-ring, and that's actually more square than round, so not really an O-ring anymore. And now we disassemble this one. So I think I talked about this before. Classical reserve as it was used back in the day. So I just pried off this little plastic part, which is basically cosmetics. Don't really need it. And what you see here is again like with the valve seat, it's a seat. But this one's not screwed in and out. It's spring loaded, as you can see. When I press it with my finger, you can see this little knob coming out. And so yeah, this is the valve seat. And when I press it, you see this upper part move in and out. And the way it works is this spring has the power of, let's say, 30 bars or something like that. Sorry. And so when the tank pressure goes below 30, that spring actually blocks the valve. And what you do now, it's a bit hard to demonstrate here because I'm missing the lever that the tank provides. So you pull on this cord, and this metal part here pulls down this, I call it a step where my finger is now. There's a little spring on top there. And you can see that this part is like, yeah, like a step. So when I pull this part slides down there and pulls back that valve seat so the air can then pass by and you can breathe again. So I'll demonstrate that later on when it's reassembled. This one actually was going a bit hard, and we'll see in a minute that it was not properly greased anymore and not properly adjusted. So I'll demonstrate it again when it's reassembled, and then it's actually way easier to handle. So this one was a bit stubborn, and but I just wanted to make sure that you understand how this works. So you could see that was sticking out a little bit, this valve seat. Now I'm like opening the reserve again, which yeah is a bit of a hassle here. So yeah, pressing it down, this slides in and pulls this one back, and then yeah, you can breathe the remaining gas. So yeah, taking the O-ring off, putting it aside so I can replace it afterwards. And there you can see I'll make another pile with the parts from the reserve. And then, yeah, there's a little, like a counter screw on top there, like a little nut. And then there's this little screw that you'll see in a second. And there you need a special tool, so that I need glasses before, obviously. And yeah, there's this little screw in there with this little thing in the middle, so you cannot use a normal flathead screwdriver, but you need one that looks a bit like a fork. And if you don't have one, you can always make one, edge grinder. And instead of ruining a perfectly good flathead screwdriver, you can just use a bit and put it in a bit holder. That's exactly what I did, because mine was somewhere in the workshop, so I just took one of these bits in an edge grinder and made me the tool that I needed. So you take the little screw out, taking off the glasses, so I'm looking good. And yeah, now this counter screw's gone, and now you can take this. I call it a step down, and you see this little spring in there, and it's like a piston in there. And I'll remove this piston in a second because it's one of these tiny parts that tend to get lost. So we take this apart. The spring's actually permanently attached, so you cannot take it out. And so now I'm pulling out this valve seat. And then we only have the spring left, which comes out now. And then we have that reserve completely disassembled and all the parts are out. And this one is also ready for the ultrasonic cleaner. So we'll put everything in there now. And then I make myself some tea. and we'll have a look when all of this is nice and clean again and we start to assemble everything.
So about an hour later, and as you can see, I also dismantled the second one, and both of them came out of the ultrasonic cleaner, rinsed them both with fresh water, dried up all the parts, and I also, I don't know if you see that, prepared all the new O-rings. Because that's a bit of a boring process which you don't need to follow. And now we will assemble one of these. So I'll show you a little bit how this is done. Okay, so this is the valve body. Came out very nice. All the parts are now super clean. This ultrasonic cleaning bath worked wonders. Also, these valves were in really, really good condition, considering the amount of time they've been sitting around. So I will start with assembling the reserve. So there is a small, tiny washer that actually came out during the ultrasonic cleaning process. And there's a super small O-ring in there, which I already replaced because that was a pain in the butt. And that would have been probably 10 minutes of video, me fumbling around in this thing and cursing. So this basically goes on top here. Yeah, glasses. And that is basically the base. Yeah, that continues the drama. Yeah, welcome to my nightmares. So that little O-ring that's in there is basically sealing this shaft, and that little washer here is making sure that the spring is not pressing against the O-ring. So now it's in there. So just use the spring to basically locate this washer, and this spring now will get a bit of grease. And this one gets a bit of grease as well, and then goes in there. You can see went through there. It is in place. So the next thing was this washer. And with this one, I adjust how far this is in or out. So obviously I can do this afterwards as well. And on top there is this little spring washer and this little screw, the one with the special screwdriver. And that basically locks the position of this one in place. So once you adjusted it, you basically screw this down and you cannot turn this anymore. So obviously I do this when it's fully assembled and on the tank, and then I will see how this works and I can adjust it. So that's the O-ring for here. It's a bit of grease. And is ready to be mounted. So just check if there's nothing in the thread. It's dry, it's good. So I screw this in, and the final tightening I will do when it's on the tank. So that was number one. So there's this little piston. This goes in here. Just leave it there because otherwise the spring will actually push it out and it will fly somewhere, which we don't want. So then we have this sealing plug here, which just needed a new O-ring, which we have in. And now the question is, where does this go? So, I mean, normally you want your knob on the right side. You can turn it down. So on these valves, the knob was designed in a way that was basically on the back of the tank, and the reserve was on the left side, so you can put it here. So as this is not something I would use for a normal dive, it doesn't bother me. So we close the right side here. And same thing, final tightening will be on the tank. So this is the outlet for the regulator. So the remaining thing we have to get done is the valve itself. So this one doesn't have an O-ring or anything. That just goes in here. So this is in all the way. Then we have this one, which needs this little washer here on top. And then it goes inside. And then we have the spring that sits here on top. And before we put the spring in, this is the final one getting in here. And this is this washer here. Again, a little bit of grease. And then it goes in here. It's a bit stubborn. And then yeah, do it the other way around. It's easier. So close this one. So that's closed. So then we have this little washer here, comes on top here, then the knob, the spring, and this little screw on top. So you have to press it in a little bit till it gets the thread, and then we tighten this basically till that bolt is flush with the nut. And now open, close. So that's all good. And now we can actually put this one back on. Therefore, we need to remove this nut one more time, because that's the top part, but then you don't see how it is done. So I will take this off once more. And now we have this little piston here that goes inside of this spring. Hope you can see that. And now like this. And now we will adjust that. And okay. Now everything nice, clean and greased. You can see how this works. I showed you before. You saw how there was slipping up there. So it's off now. So this is like the reserve is not engaged, right? Which means it is engaged depending on how you look at it. So this means you start your dive like this. The spring is on the tension and is blocking the remaining 30 bars. So now you're down to that. So you breathe hard, you pull on this. This slides forward. The spring is lifted up. Pressure is released, and you can breathe the remaining 30 bars. That's how it works. So the adjustment seems to be fine. I can actually handle that pretty well. So final adjustments may have to be done later on, but now we secure it like this. And put this cap over it. Just need to figure out how that needs to go on like this. Ta-da! So this is on, and everything is good to go. So we have this little tube here. Screw that in, and we have a new O-ring for the tank. And our valve is ready. So I'll put that back in the tank now. This is not super interesting. So in the next video, we will go through the regulators, and then we will fill these tanks and assemble everything, and then we will go diving. So you probably saw that we had a winner on this little video I posted in the shorts, and so we're already in contact. And yeah, then we'll go in the water with these things. Chris, myself, and Marco will be filming, and then I'll explain a little bit more how all of this works. Thank you very much. Hope you like it. See you next video. Bye-bye.